All right, so I'd like to call our June 9th, 2022 election board meeting to order. And thank you, Dominic, for joining us today as well as Nicole's proxy. So we'll start with our old business, and our first item is the approval of the minutes of the April 28th, 2022 meetings and the May 13th, 2022 meeting. So I think that I need to ask for a motion to approve each separately. So if we could start with the April 28th.
So moved on the first one.
And I need a second.
I'll second it.
Great. And Karen, could we do a roll call?
All right, Chairperson Rana.
Yes.
And is it Dominic?
Yes.
Yes, Dominic, member Dominic. Sorry.
Yes.
And member, gosh, this has been a crazy start.
Yes.
Donovan.
Yes.
We got Dominic and Donovan, and the motion has been approved 3-0.
Great. Thank you. And can I have a motion to approve the May 13th minutes?
So moved.
I'll second that.
Roll call.
Chairperson Rana
Yes.
and member Dominic
Yes.
and member Garlitz,
Yes.
and motion approved 3-0.
Thank you. So our next item of old business was late CFA-4 filers. And I know we were going to make this an agenda item for another meeting as well, but I wanted to check, Karen, if you had any updates on that before we move on to new business.
So okay, so we have two people that I probably need to explain a little bit. We had them on the agenda for last week. And then because of some confusion and with the holiday, we ended up not getting everything done in proper order for posting and notifications. We had to cancel the meeting. And it was me, I forgot to let the candidates know that they were not supposed to come last week. So it was my mistake. But now we didn't have enough time to have them come for this meeting. So the board could not request their presence. But a few of them said that they may come anyway. And so now today we have a few because it fit their schedule. So it's up to the board if you were willing to hear their responses of why they were late with their CFA-4 from April.
Okay.
I would like to hear them because they've made the effort to be here.
I think that's a good idea.
I agree as well. And I was wondering if just to be consistent for our next meeting, could we hear the people who are here today and then table our actions on that until the next meeting with everybody? Or do you think it's fine to do it kind of piece by piece?
Now,
My question would be, it seems as if there's only two folks that we don't have a call, email, or in person from. Is that correct, Karen? Is that what you're seeing as well? Or three?
I guess I didn't count them. You could be right there.
So, I mean, if you can, we didn't field the phone calls, but I've been a party to the emails in terms of seeing what the explanations were. And I would say that if you can adequately explain the phone calls that were received to the election office, explain what the reasoning was, I'd be willing, as long as Shruti and Dominic are, to make a decision on those today, as well as these folks, and then table the other three.
I agree.
Just because it's been kind of a scheduling nightmare. So as long as everyone else is okay with that, that would be my preference.
My name's Jeff Cockrell. I'm with the county legal department, and that does seem pretty reasonable, except the state code requires that if someone is going to go through this process, they have to have notice. I would agree that if they're in the room, then that would presume that they have notice, and that notice has to be 5 days prior. So I think if you're going to, it sounds like you're going to have to do another meeting anyway. I would just do anybody that's not here at that next meeting.
So is it not true that the initial meeting last week to these folks was noticed?
And this is not that meeting, right? This is a different day, different time, different day.
That's not my question. So the folks that sent emails that said they weren't able to attend regardless, and made calls because of that in kind of in lieu of attending in person, is that not something that we can decide on?
I think you should do it after you give them an additional 5 days notice because that's following the statute. Again, I think what you're saying is probably reasonable, but we have a statute that requires 5 days notice. And I guess in my mind, in addition, if we're already going to do that for at least a couple of those and have that meeting notice and have everybody here, it doesn't make sense not to just play it safe, do the notice and have it at that.
So we should only be dealing with these couple folks here today. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I think that all makes sense. And I just wanted to also say it was my fault that the first notice was late. So I apologize for that. And thanks everyone. And the next notice will be early. Okay. So I actually can't see the audience. So I'm not sure who is present. And I'm wondering maybe if I could deputize you, Donovan, to ask the people who are present to I think there's a podium. Oh, great. Okay. To come to the podium. And can I do that? Can I sort of put Donovan in charge of the logistics for the next couple of minutes as we hear from the people in person?
I'm happy to do that.
Okay,
If
great.
either of you, I guess it doesn't matter who goes first, could just come up and state your name and what you're running for and then your explanation.
Can everyone hear me now?
It's better.
Okay,
Yes.
great. My name is Anna Abernathy. I'm here representing the Monroe County Young Democrats. And do I just explain the situation, or do you all ask me questions, or what would you prefer?
You can just tell us how come you were, I know you didn't even do it,
Okay.
but how come was the CFA late?
Sure. So I'm the current chair of the organization. Our CFA, I believe, was 3.5 hours late. It was submitted by our former treasurer. He has since stepped down. We will be identifying a new treasurer for the upcoming year and identifying an interim treasurer in the meantime. But that treasurer, this was his first time kind of in this role. And so he kind of acknowledged that he was not able to complete his responsibilities fully. So we don't expect to have this problem in the future.
Then someone from your organization also emailed too. So that was, I believe, additional information that stated the same. So Shruti, do you have any questions?
I don't have questions for the speaker. I did have questions about what we do next, which is, do we kind of review the situation and make a decision now? Is that what the normal procedure is?
Yes, I think what you would do is review the situation and you have the opportunity to uphold the waiver or uphold the fine. You could waive the penalty in total, or you could reduce the penalty amount by a specific number that you guys indicated.
Okay.
As a board.
Can I open it up for discussion for the board members? And then after the discussion, if someone wants to make a motion on either of those three options, I can entertain that motion.
I have no discussion items.
I would like to step in and say that I probably have to recuse myself from this case as a board member of Monroe County Young Democrats.
Okay, thanks for letting us know. And Jeff, that's fine, right? If the two of us vote, if Donovan and I vote?
I think that the statute requires a unanimous vote of its entire membership in order to approve a waiver. Why, I don't think that I know that. I'm looking right at it. So I think what you would be best to be done here is maybe table this one until that next meeting where you have a full board who is able to vote on this item.
So they can't vote.
Well, they can vote, it just can't, they can't approve it without a unanimous vote of the entire membership.
Could you advise and counsel us on a recusal here if it's appropriate or not?
Well, I think that the board would, he's a board member, and this was filed on behalf of the board, and the board would be responsible for the penalty. Is that correct?
I would presume.
I would presume that's all to be correct. So I think that I think that he should recuse himself from voting on this, and that we just look at this at the next meeting.
So I'd move to table this one along with the others.
Will she have to come back?
I think that we've had the hearing,
Okay,
and so I don't think she would have to come back. She's welcome to come back again, but I think the information has been received.
gotcha.
Thank you. I would just like to clarify, if that's all right, that all of our board works during the day. It was very challenging for me to take off work to be here. So I would really appreciate it if this, me representing our group today could kind of be sufficient. If I could get some confirmation of that, I would really appreciate that.
I don't speak for the rest of the board, but that's certainly sufficient for me.
Okay.
What I was going to propose is, just so you have an idea of what we would do is, well, I guess if we're waiting for unanimous, what I was going to say is Donovan and I could vote now and then table the final, the final vote on the, or maybe indicate how we'd vote now and then table the final decision till next time. So you have some idea, but then I just realized it has to be unanimous, right? So if Nicole disagrees with our vote, we'd have to do it anyway. Okay. Okay, I see heads nodding. Okay, so let me say, Anna, thank you very much for coming in person today. I understand you have a very busy schedule and to let us know what happened. So I'm sorry that we can't vote today, but I think you did hear one vote, right? That was sufficient. And, I can't make any guarantees for our final vote, but I think your comments were appreciated, and we'd like to kind of move forward, and I'll put this behind us. So my understanding is that we'll take the final vote at our next July 4th. Excuse me, Jeff, would this be our July 4th meeting or our August meeting?
It was discussed that we may do this in August due to the 4th of July being right there.
Okay.
Also, I wanted to perhaps remind the board that the guidelines that the board has set up previously is the first offense is always forgiven, if that matters at all.
Yeah, and we would view this as a first offense, presumably. So.
Does that make a difference?
Standing board policy?
It's the election board policy.
Yeah, I mean, is it like standing documented policy? Do we even have to take a vote on them the next time, or can we
I don't know
dismiss
that.
all of these due to that policy? Is it recorded?
Well, the statute requires a unanimous vote of the entire membership in order for something to be waived or reduced.
Okay.
I heard what she said. I'm not prepared to say whether there's any kind of time frame from when that these are under any kind of limitations for you. I know I work with the Economic Development Commission and the tax abatements, and there's a 45-day window from when they're filed to when they have to be reviewed. I don't know if that's the case for these. So I would just say pending that review and me getting that information to Karen, I think August is fine. If we turn out there is a time frame they have to be reviewed by, I'll let Karen know today, and that may change. I just don't know.
I'm gonna open this.
And it seems possible that if there is a time limit, since we've heard the information, that maybe we could vote at the next meeting on this one at least, or the other one that we hear today. And then, have the rest noticed for August as we discussed. Right, because the issue with today or July was just notice, and you, Jeff, you indicated that having a person here in person meant that they had gotten notice.
I think the reason we give notice is to make sure that the parties can attend and are prepared to attend. And so as long as the parties that are here are prepared to attend, I think you're fine.
Mommy.
Okay, great. So Okay. So I'm trying to make this as streamlined and efficient as possible. And also, in appreciation of the time that people put forward coming in person today. So I think, why don't I say this? Again, thank you, Anna, for speaking. And I'm sorry that we couldn't take a vote today, but it sounds like, at this point, it sounds like at least 2 members intend to act consistently with our policy of forgiving a first offense, but we will have to table the official vote until we have a full board present, which we will try to do at the July meeting, but definitely by the August meeting. And then we will follow up with notifying you at that point.
Okay. And I have one more question. Will you need a representative present in order to take a vote, or are you able to vote without a representative from our organization in person?
Yeah, I think we just needed you in person to provide us with any additional information, which you did today. And I think we can view this information as submitted, and that way we wouldn't need anyone in person at the future meetings. Is that correct, Jeff? That we can take this information as submitted at this meeting?
I do not think, unless the board requires them at the next meeting, that this wouldn't be sufficient for them to have given the information required under the code.
Okay, great. So we should be set with that. And then we'll let Anna, we will let you and your organization know if there's any further actions, as well as the outcome of our vote at the next meeting where we're able to do that.
Okay, great. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
All right, if the next person can come up.
Hi, I'm Mary Van Devender, and I'm running for Washington Township trustee. This is my first time running, be in office. I'm running unopposed. I read I guess I misunderstood because I didn't have any donations and I hadn't spent any money, but I didn't think I had to file. I now know that that's not the way it works, that you have to file. So I got the call at 3 o'clock on Friday afternoon. I ran and got everything so I could sign it. When I got to the office, they were closed. Sorry. So I had to wait till Monday then to turn it in because you can't, that's mine. I'm sorry. My daughter's traveling out of town, so I wanted to make sure I didn't want to shut my phone off and something happened and I needed to run. So I apologize for any inconvenience that I've caused. I now know that I have to, no matter what, if it's 0, I still have to turn my paperwork in.
Okay. Thank you so much for providing that information. And Karen, is it your understanding that this is a first offense as well?
Yes, it is her first offense.
Okay. And in this particular case, I can open it up for discussion with the board members, correct? Because all 3 would be able to vote. Or at least no one is recusing themselves for this one. Is that correct? Yes. Okay.
Correct.
Great. So let me open it up either for discussion among the board members or if there's a board member that has a question to ask the speaker. Okay. It looks like we're good. Can we move? Can one of you make a motion and then we can vote on that motion?
I would move to waive the fine as a first offense. Sorry. And I find it hard to believe that you didn't know that everything in government comes with a lot of.
I know. I'm learning. I'm learning.
That's sarcasm, by the way. So yeah, I would just move to waive this.
I'll
And
second that motion.
great. And Karen, can we do a roll call?
All right, the roll call, Chairperson Rana,
Yes.
Board Member Dominic,
Yes.
and Board Member Donovan.
Yes.
Motion approved, 3-0.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for coming in person as well.
As we're still kind of in this whole thing, I have 2 letters and I didn't know if you wanted to deal with that, if you still want these people to come in, because I'll end up needing to contact them. One of them was Scott Smith and he had to have brain surgery this week. and is going to be recovering. Obviously, well, not obviously, I don't know how long the recovery is. So he gave a reason, and those letters have been passed on to the board members. If you didn't get it, please let me know. I can certainly pass it on. And also Chris Reynolds. So Scott Smith is running for township trustee in Polk. And Chris Reynolds was Indian Creek trustee, running on that. They both just wanted to know if they still need to come in, or is their letter sufficient?
So, just to clarify, can we, it sounded to me from our discussion earlier that we can say that their letters are sufficient, but we should still provide them notice of the next meeting where we're considering late CFA for filings, which would be our August meeting, so that they do have a chance to attend in person if they'd like. Is that correct, Jeff?
Yeah, I think you could say that. And I think what we'd do is at the hearing, we present the letter as evidence.
Without them being there. The letter would be their presence, basically.
Yeah, I
Yes.
think they could
Sounds good to
attend the
me.
hearing by a letter, essentially.
Sure.
Perhaps this is just a question, whether through a motion or just as a matter of record, I think that perhaps, as a point to one of the folks that already made not having to attend, can we either motion or have it in the minutes that anyone who has either been at this meeting in person or has previously provided written or telecommunication as to their reasoning does not have to attend in person, regardless of the notice and the fact that we will deal with it at a later date? Is that something we can do?
But I guess the notice is to allow them to attend if they wish.
Correct.
Nobody ever has to come to the hearing, right? You could only use information gained at the hearing to do that. And I think as long as the written documentation are part of the packet for that meeting, I think that's sufficient for them to have materials at the meeting.
So not necessary is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
So why don't we do this if this works? If we could make a motion and vote on it and just state that the people who submitted their letters, that we view that as sufficient information and they don't need to show up at our next meeting, that we have enough information to make a decision. Nonetheless, we'll notice them and let them know about the other meeting in case they want to come. Maybe there's new information or something like that, or they want to be here in person. Does that make sense? Okay. Can I have a motion along those lines?
Go ahead.
Can you tell me what the motion is?
How about I need a motion with each person's name that Karen just mentioned, to note that this person has submitted a letter providing information on why their filing was late, and that we're willing to accept that in lieu of personal appearance for them. Nonetheless, we'll still send them a notice of our next meeting if they want to come in. Okay.
So I'll motion that we accept letters from candidates as a form of appearance for them in front of the board from Christopher Reynolds running for Indian Creek trustee and Scott Smith running for Polk trustee.
Okay, great. Do I have a second?
Second, maybe overkill, but second.
Okay, great. Roll call. Well, we want extra
Rana?
everything now. Sorry. Good.
Oops. Chairperson Rana,
Yes.
Board Member Dominic,
Yes.
and Board Member Donovan.
Yes.
Motion approved 3-0.
Okay, thank you very much. And then just hopefully we worked through all the confusion rather than creating more, but we will be noticing the late CFO filers, people whose cases have not been decided upon, for a future meeting. We think that'll be the August meeting, and we'll send out the notices for that. So that's when we'll be next considering these. Okay. So with that, let's move on to new business. And the first item of new business is updates from Karen Wheeler.
Under new business, I actually do have something that came up in regards to registering people. So occasionally we will get No, when a person registers to vote, they put in their address where they live, and then they can put in a mailing address. And we take everything just as they say, because they're signing an affidavit. It's not up to us to police that. We've come across some things that people are registering in inappropriate places, perhaps a commercial building, which could be a hotel or a motel, or which they could be living there, or probably more likely they're registering at the post office address, not a PO box, but using the post office address, that physical address. The question is, and we talked to the state about this. So if you are registering that person and you know that that is a wrong address, like they cannot be living at the post office, is it our responsibility to reject that? And if you say yes, then that means, do we check every address that is out there, which is almost impossible. So, and the problem is you can take two different views on that. It's like, well, I know they don't live there, so I'm going to reject them, or I'm going to call them. Or do I see something that I go, that doesn't seem right? But you have to remember that a homeless person can literally register at a Kohl's parking lot. If that's where they sleep at night, that's where we register them. If they sign that affidavit, that's where they live. So the problem is, if you have more knowledge, do you go with it? But you have to always keep everything uniform and non-discriminatory. So if you do it for one, you have to do it for all. And the state, we wanted to know what is the regulation, and they said, it's actually up to the election board. You have to rule on this. Do you want us to take everything as face value, or do you want us to go in to check Elevate and see pictures or call them? I can tell you my opinion if you want to hear it. Maybe you can hear it in my voice. Or if you want to ask me some questions about that.
How many folks are we talking about? You would have to check the whole voter roll?
Every registration that would come in, if we're going to do it uniform and non-discriminatory, we would have to do it for all. And then if we don't do it for none. You know, we can't have, oh, I'll check this one or I'll check that one, because then are we selecting people out? Oh, I know Donovan doesn't live there. So do I have the right to go check on you or check you on Elevate? I would say we don't have that right, but you are the ones that have to make that call.
Okay, I agree that selectively doing that seems really unfair, especially because it's just based on what somebody may or may think is an address or not, right? I mean, I might think I know the address of the post office and I might be off by a number, and I wouldn't want people to be, to be singled out for things like that. I have one more question. So just to clarify this in my mind, you're saying that if a person were to come and register at something that doesn't look like a real location, so suppose they put the actual post office, like you said, and we know that it's not a PO box and they don't live at the post office, but you're saying if it is someone who happens to view like the parking lot at the post office is where they, is where they set up at night or something like that, then actually that is valid, right? I mean, okay.
If they sleep there at night, they can use a parking lot. They can be living in a tent. They can be living on the street. They can actually be in a business place if that's where they sleep at night and there's a bedroom or a sofa in their building, they can do that. But if you know, he goes home every night.
I see.
I'm going to call him out. Do you see the problem? Because sometimes we do have knowledge.
Right.
We use that knowledge.
Is there a way, so we're asking people to sign an affidavit. So we're telling them you have to tell us truthfully under penalty of perjury that this is where you live. So, and that's the presumption we give everybody, right? Like, I'm just telling you when I register that I live at my location under penalty of perjury, right? Okay. So that seems to me to be fair to everyone. And I guess the question is, suppose it turns out, what's the remedy if there's a situation where, suppose somebody signs up at their business and it's correct that they weren't living there, they were actually living in another location? Is it that somebody can challenge their actual voting registration at a different time, or how does that work?
We, as an office, cannot challenge that.
Mommy, can you open this?
I would think, I'm not positive, maybe you would know that too, that, I mean, voters can be challenged by other voters if they're of that certain party in the primary, which never does happen. I imagine a voter could challenge another voter, but it's really difficult. How do I know you don't sleep in the back room in that office building?
Right. And we are asking everybody to sign the affidavit and affirm under penalty of perjury, right? And it could be, anyone could be just as likely to falsely make that as anybody else, right? I mean, it's not like, I feel like we shouldn't be singling people out based on where we think they might live. And people might have lots of awkward personal situations that they don't necessarily want to discuss out, right? I mean, they may be very truthful, but, it may not look like that to somebody who's watching them leave at 4 a.m. every day or something like that, right? So I personally feel like we should rely on the affidavit that is submitted. Everybody who signs it presumably reads that it says that you're affirming that this is true and correct. Sorry, 1 second.
And I guess it's easy, for instance, if you and I were both doing them and I have extra time and I start checking, then it can become, that person will be registered depending on if you get it or I get it, because you're just busy or you don't have time or you don't want to go to Elevate because you don't have to. But I go, maybe I'm checking this and I see something that's incorrect, or I think it's incorrect. You just don't know. Elevate's not always perfect either.
That's right. And so I feel like we already have the standards set into the laws and the statute about asking for that affidavit, and that should be good enough for everybody, given that everybody who signs that is supposed to do it truthfully, and everybody who signs it untruthfully is at risk for perjury, right? I mean, they can be, it's a legal document that they've signed, right? So.
And I would agree with you. And it's just that you guys have to say, this is what we're doing. And everything we do, we're always told by the state, we are not the police, whatever. We're not the finance police. We're not the voter registration. We take the information they give us. We don't even have to look at their driver's license when they give us that number. But everything that the voter does, it's always a legal affidavit that they are signing, and it does have felonies attached to it by them lying on them. But I don't have to prove, or I don't have to make them prove that they're telling the truth.
Yeah. And like you said, if we did, we would never get anything done because we'd be checking every single thing. So I feel comfortable. I mean, we have it set up so that we're supposed to rely on, we're supposed to trust what people say and rely on what they submit as truthful, and that there's already a procedure worked in if somebody lies, and signs it. And, then you said they're liable for felonies and all these different things. So in my mind, I think we are entitled to rely on that and should be doing that so that we treat everybody equally. But I guess I should open it up to the other board members and see if they want to discuss or ask further questions.
My only question would be, are we only talking about the folks that have a mailing address and a home address? Or are you talking about everyone?
If they have a mailing address,
A different mailing address than their home address? Are those
are they the only two? No, not necessarily.
so the concern is, or perceived concern is everyone, not just those folks with two addresses?
Once you start getting into it, then it's that uniform and non-discriminatory, and then it's everybody.
Yeah, it's tough. Okay.
Really, like I could come in and say, oh, that's my neighbor. I know that they got in a fight 2 nights ago and that person isn't sleeping there anymore. I'm not, I think they've moved out, right? Like it could get really crazy and there's no way to really prove these things. And I feel like then it could get people just sort of, first of all, people making mistakes, right? You could be mistaken about whether something is the post office or next door to it. And then also people could be, unfairly utilizing this, right? Based on what they think they might know about someone, but may not be accurate.
And how it's supposed to work. And it does that whatever address that they register to, we send out that confirmation card. And if that is not a correct address or it's not even on the books or whatever it could be, and it comes back to us, they are not registered. That card has to get through from the post office to them.
So you have a cleanup process. Or it's not even a cleanup because they never get registered. if that's
So
the case.
it's a pretty good balance in there. I mean, it really does work. But when they register perhaps at the post office physical address and they have a PO box, we will miss that because unless that address is the post office. But then are we supposed to call them on that? And I think it's too much to ask of the voter registration to check on all those addresses.
No, I agree. But you're saying, so if I mailed something to the post office and I knew you had a PO box, but I wrote on it Karen Wheeler and the address of the post office, it would still end up in your PO box?
It would be sent to the PO box.
Interesting.
I don't know how you get around that one, but
I don't even know where you find the address of post offices.
and we have several around in the county.
Yeah,
Several, some,
because it's always just
and there's other buildings.
Google
that-
tells me.
So if I can just say, if you're willing to say, we just go by what they say on those affidavits and we take it as it is, then we'll all be happy.
But you need action. You
I
need
need
a
an
board.
action from the board.
I don't see any reason to take any additional action that we've already, or steps outside of the process that's already in place. So I would just move to keep it the same, what we currently do, and not check anything additionally.
Yeah, and maybe we can affirm that this signed affidavits are sufficient for us, that we view the signed affidavits as sufficient since everyone has to turn them in.
Thank you.
And then we don't need to move to do that, right? Or do we?
I thought do we need board action on this? Is what the state is saying?
The state says it's up to you guys.
Well, then let's just make it official. Somebody.
Sorry, that was not a motion coming out of my computer. That was an objection to the meal that was.
Mommy, can I get
Served
this
right next to me.
out?
Okay, and I guess can one of you make a motion and second it? I was just apologizing for the noise on my end. Sorry.
Okay, there's already a motion on the table, so someone just needs a second.
I'll second it.
Roll call?
All right, roll call. Chairperson Rana,
Yes.
Board Member Dominic,
Yes.
Board Member Donovan.
Yes.
Motion approved 3-0.
Okay, thank you. So our next item, Karen, did you have any further updates or?
Did you all get that email from Dina from the commissioner's office that mentioned, it just came up today, that there is not such a thing as the Board of Elections, but you guys are called Monroe County Election Board, and that's according to the state also. So some of our things do say Board of Elections, and I think that's been passed on for years. Not everything has that, but a lot of things do. So if you're using it, I'm hearing that we're not supposed to. And so my office is, of course, changing that. But so if you have it,
Where is that coming from?
I got the email, and I think you did too, but it came, I think,
I
late
haven't seen
today.
it.
I think it was late today, from Dina, from the commissioner's office.
Is that coming from the state to them, or is it coming from our legal department to them? Because this is a pretty in the weeds thing in my mind.
It came from Dina, and in the email, it says, according to the state, there is no Board of Elections for Indiana.
I
So-
think we have way bigger fish to fry, I'll be honest with you, just to
So,
make that as a matter of record. Thank you, though.
yes. As just FYI.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah. And I guess we don't need to. Yeah. Okay. Duly noted. Thank you. Thank you. So those, and so Karen, that was all of your updates. Is that correct?
That's all I have.
Great. So our next item then is public comments. So I guess I'd like to see if anyone would like to make a public comment. I will rely on the other board members to let us know if there's someone in the audience in person who would like to speak. If there's anybody who is attending virtually right now through Zoom, you can raise your hand and then we will allow for public comment. And I will just wait a minute and just see whether anybody has anybody wants to raise their hand.
There's no one here that has raised their hand.
Right. And I don't see, I'll double check quickly. I don't see that anyone has raised their hand, but I just want to make sure. Okay. So seeing no hands raised and it looks like no one is attending in person to make a public comment. I'll close the public comment period and we'll move to the announcement that our next county election board meeting is scheduled for July 7th, 2022 at 1 p.m. And it'll be in the same location, the Nat U Hill room, and we'll also have a hybrid Zoom option for people to join. So with that, I would like can I have a motion to adjourn?
I motion to adjourn.
Second.
Karen?
Oh, yes, we have one more. All right. Chairperson Rana. Did we have a motion?
To adjourn.
Chairperson Rana, did you respond?
Yes. Did you hear me? I said yes.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Could have been me. Board Member Dominic,
Yes.
Board Member Donovan.
Yes, and feel better, Chairperson Rana.
Thank you. And thank you also, Dominic.
Motion approved, 3-0.
Great. Well, we will now adjourn and thank you, everyone, and see you at our next meeting.